Good evening. Thank you to all the candidates, both the candidates, and everyone else here for joining us for this forum hosted by the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley and AARP of North Dakota. My name is Amy Phillips, and I will be your moderator for this forum. The forum is being streamed live and will be recorded for playback on the City of Fargo's government PEG TV channel, TV Fargo 56. This recording will also be posted to our website and Facebook page. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you would like to learn about us, please visit our website or Facebook page. Thank you to the City of Fargo for providing the space and technical assistance for this evening's event, and to all our volunteers greeting, collecting questions, and timekeeping. We're so grateful for all your help. I'll take a moment to highlight the League's 2024 online voter guide at vote411.org. At this website, you can find your polling location and get personalized ballot information to compare the candidates who are seeking your vote. Before we begin, I'd like to review the rules and procedures. Questions have been submitted in advance by the public, online and in person here tonight. Questions may be screened for clarity or combined with other similar questions. All candidates will be given an opportunity to address each question. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. Each will then be allowed 1 minute to respond to each question. At the conclusion of the Q&A period, candidates will be given another 1 minute for closing remarks. A timer, which is on the wall up here, will indicate how much time is remaining and will indicate when your time is done. When you hear the beep or beeps, that means your time has expired. You can feel free to complete your sentence or thought, and then we'll move on to the next candidate. We will appreciate the audience's consideration in maintaining a quiet room so that all candidates have the opportunity to answer their questions fully and in a timely manner. We have 2 candidates here with us for District 5 of the Cass County Commission, and they are Joel Vettel and Keith Godis. We will begin opening statements with Joel Vettel, and then we will move on to Keith Godis. Joel, your opening statement.
Thank you very much. First off, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and certainly the public for the consideration of especially this event, but also just consideration of your vote. My name is Joel Vettel. I've been a resident of Cass County for over 30 years. I am proud graduate of North Dakota State University. I've worked in a variety of positions within the community, including the areas of law enforcement. Also currently work at Sanford Health, and I am father of 2 daughters and have a lovely wife that we live here in Cass County, and have enjoyed the privilege and honor of really growing up and raising a family in a wonderful community. And I always say, North Dakota, we don't stay here for the weather. We stay here because of the people, and that's the reason why I'm running, is truly to serve the community as I've done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Godis, your opening statement.
Yeah, I'm Keith Godis, and I too thank for the opportunity to be involved in this voter forum. I'm a lifelong resident of Cass County, born and raised on a dairy farm by Mapleton, out there between Castleton and West Fargo there. I've spent literally my whole life on the farm, even though I spent 40 years teaching school out at Buffalo Tower City in that school district after I had taught for a short time in Oregon and came back. And when Mary and I were married, we built a house on the farm and been part of this community and the culture of the county pretty much, our whole lives. So just representing the rural area that I come from is pretty important to me.
Okay, thank you very much. Our first question will be directed to Keith first. And that question is, what are your top priorities when it comes to allocating the county's budget? How would you balance the need for public services with fiscal responsibility?
I think that all centers around the situation in the county having to do with economic growth. Economic growth is something that's quite apparent in the rising population, the rising number of needs in the Fargo, Moorhead, and outlying communities. So it's a matter of the services that are going to be needed, the challenges that have to be met, and the priorities then are going to be in health and safety, services for people of all ages, the importance of county roads and schools and things like that that have real community involvement. So it all centers around, economic growth and how we pursue the impact of that.
Thank you. Joel?
In my over 20 years of law enforcement experience in this community, I have found that the safety and security of our community is one of the top priorities that we need to focus on. We all recognize times are changing, and we need to change with them to make sure that the quality of life that we have in our communities stays strong. And being safe and secure in your home, being safe and secure in your communities is one of the top priorities. Other areas that are certainly ones that we need to work towards and provide resources towards, including housing issues. We all recognize housing is one of the best ways that we can attract and keep and retain people in our communities for workforce. And that's the third one. When you talk about really the lifeblood of our communities, it is truly finding people that want to come here, raise their families, but they need to have quality employment, and we need to have those people come here and fill the great jobs that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joel, this question goes to you first. What specific infrastructure projects do you believe are most critical for the county? How will you address the ongoing maintenance of roads and public buildings?
Well, I think one of the major issues right now concerning is the jail. I think is one of the most relevant issues that we've seen in the last 10 years. Our court systems continue to have needs, but also law enforcement in the area of the jail is extremely important. That has been on the forefront. Certainly, when we look at out of the roads in our counties, we've got to make sure that we're spending the money to make sure that people can travel and find, and those roads are safe. And so those are certainly the diversion issue that currently is under construction is going to be top priority as we move forward. And I think we all recognize that we do have limited resources. We need to be very conservative in those areas, but we also need to spend the money to not only keep the quality of life we have, but certainly maintain the areas that we feel are important to the citizens of Cass County.
Thank you. Keith?
Reflecting back on the first question, again, my top priority is health, safety, infrastructure. This would be the same kind of the importance Joel has mentioned of the absolute need for a jail. That's quite evident. The impact on the court system of Fargo because of the outlying communities and what's going on has forced that issue. And so I would really think that would be high in the priority list. But tying the county together in an infrastructure system that not only addresses the rapid growth in areas adjacent to Fargo, but to realize that the road system is going to be very important in the cohesion of the whole community, which goes out into the rural area. Keeping those roads and highways in as good a shape as we possibly can is a high priority.
Thank you. And Keith, this next question goes to you first. How do you plan to approach property taxes and other forms of county revenue? Do you foresee any need for tax increases or decreases during your term?
1 minute on this subject, property taxes?
Yes.
That is a That's one thing that I have, thought about a long time, not just in the election period here, but for years being a township officer out there in Durbin Township. The property tax has two elements to it. One is the assessment of it, and the other is the mill levy, the spending of it. And both have to be highly scrutinized because the demand for services is high. And so we have to create efficiencies with that, which includes making the property tax as fair as possible. There's assessment problems that you can see constantly about what the value of the property is up to an individual's own assessment of his own. But it's so important to have those two elements working together, the spending and the assessment.
Thank you. Joel?
And agree that nobody likes to pay property taxes. It's probably the least part of the role of government is requiring those dollars to come to government entities. But it truly is a responsibility that I've had the privilege of doing work and being executive director for a government entity and making sure that those dollars are spent wisely. We need to continue to find ways to utilize private and public partnerships to reduce those costs associated with the services that we have. But more importantly, we need to be responsible to ensure that people don't get priced out of their homes, that we are doing all we can to make a priority to spend those dollars wisely. And as we continue to move forward as a community with growth, we know things cost money, and we need to recognize that we need to be well planned out for our future.
Thank you. And Joel, this next question goes to you first. What strategies do you have for promoting job growth and attracting businesses to the county? How will you support the local economy, particularly in rural areas?
I think the biggest way we can be supportive of growth in our communities is oftentimes work with private business and then get out of their way. Private business has a way to do a tremendous amount of work, if not governed to death and not restricted in what they're doing. And we need to be partners with our business communities to ensure that they have the resources they need to grow their businesses. Many of the businesses in our communities are family owned. Many of them work towards trying to make sure that the services that they provide to our communities that are vital have to be part of what we do. And so I'm a big believer that the government is not to be overutilized in regulation, but there to support its citizens, and that includes workforce issues, such thing as supporting the Workforce Academy, such things as supporting some of our chamber work, to try to ensure that we're doing all we can to support the great work that our businesses do.
Thank you. Keith?
The responsibility of the county in areas not only of transportation, but amenities that are necessary to draw people. We know we have adequate training facilities, universities that prepare the workforce. But the other part of that is to make sure that, the community knows the importance of the combination of business and jobs and what it involves. The community has to have an attitude to support business, and business has to have the responsibility to support the community. And that working relationship is pretty important in trying to stimulate and continue job growth.
Thank you. This next question goes to you first, Keith. The county purchased the building northwest of the annex. How should we best use that space?
I think some of the conversation about that has been the importance of the court system and what they need in that. The pressure on the court system has been pretty much on an upward swing because of what's happening in rural areas and the pressure on the court system. And so I think that's the number one priority, but the county has to really scrutinize and figure out exactly what they need. They got to be efficiently using that for whatever, the growth areas are. I'm not completely sure of, which areas, not being, on a day-to-day basis with the commission yet, but I know the courthouse has been, and what I've observed, a very important priority for that building.
Thank you. Joel?
The history behind that building being over a 7-year-old former elementary school, the building itself is not structurally sound to take care of the needs of what they are looking for. So certainly the property is an incredible piece of property and will be vital to the growth of the courthouse and the services that are provided there. And I think to my opponent's point, I think one of the areas that they've really looked towards is a way to expand the court system. They know they need a new courtroom. The necessity of that means that other services in that area need to be pushed somewhere else. And so the growth of our courthouse needs to be responsible, it needs to be well planned out. We need to have a sound plan in place before any ground is broken. But I think it was a good purchase. I think it provides them the needed areas so that in the future we don't need to build a new courthouse. All we really need is the land to expand.
Thank you. And Joel, this next question goes to you first. What are your plans to address workforce shortages in key sectors like healthcare, education, and skilled labor? How will you ensure that local training programs align with the needs of employers in District 5?
I think I come back to that partnership with private and public entities, and that I think that's extremely important. First of all, the government's role is really to support those businesses to attract great workers to our communities, retain the great workers that we have, but also to educate. And I think a prime example is the Workforce Academy that is now currently being built. That is a project that has worked in other communities, and we hope it'll work here because we need to keep retaining our kids. As a father of 2 daughters that are in college right now, I want them to stay here. It's selfish of me, but I want them to stay here. But I also recognize we live in one of the best communities in the country. I think there's a lot of great opportunities here, but we need to take and work towards strategies that really attract and retain the workforces. And education is a big one, but we also have to invest in our businesses and get them to really help us make these a vital part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
I would probably reiterate what Joel just mentioned. The training academy, workforce academy, healthcare is very important. I think one aspect of this that is going on is in the school systems. I think the vocational part of that is they realize that we need healthcare workers, and they're responding to that need in high schools in the community. And I know even out where I taught in the rural area at Maple Valley, there was Valley City's Vocational Center, and this goes back quite a number of years, is that they were training 20, 30 years ago already what was an impending need in nursing homes and such. So I think what Joel said, plus the idea of working closely with those high school programs, starting to train younger people to step into those jobs where there is a great need.
Thank you. And Keith, this question goes to you first. How will you work to protect the interests of local farmers? And what specific policies will you support to address the challenges facing the agricultural sector, such as droughts, market fluctuations, and farm sustainability?
Well, the first thing that we can do on a county level is to really work hard and look at the road system. This isn't an agricultural community that I grew up in back in the 50s and 60s with a 1.5-ton truck to the Durban elevator. These are 1,000 bushel semi-trailers that hold 80,000 pounds of, product. And so there's tremendous pressure on our roads. So from a county level, the importance of those roads are very, very important. And then working with, I work in the crop insurance industry now since I retired from teaching. And, the federal programs of doing what you can to cooperate with crop insurance has been a major idea that the federal government has used, and what the county can do to promote farmers in that area too with the local FSA agency. That's pretty important too.
Thank you. Joel?
Growing up on a farm and being raised by a dad that recognizes the importance of agriculture, I certainly see that we need to do all we can to support that vital industry. It is still a critical industry in our region, and especially here in Cass County. And I think we need to, as Keith said, we need to support them in ways that the county can. And really, those are the infrastructure areas. Roads are extremely important. We've got to continue to be making sure that we are on forefront with water and watershed issues. Those are critical for farmers. And we also need to recognize that at any given time, their markets do fluctuate greatly. And especially in our rural areas, the small farms are kind of gone. And it's a lot of larger farmers, but they're taking big risks and they're gambling each and every day. And so we need to continue to support them in any way we can.
Thank you. Joel, this question goes to you first. How do you balance the need for development with the preservation of farmland, green spaces, and environmental resources?
Certainly. Simply, you have to have a well planned out theory on how you want to grow. I think we've done some great things when it comes to our growth in our county. I also think we've had some missteps, and we need to continue to find and make sure that we're reflecting back on our past mistakes and really educate and make a great plan moving forward. And growth is important. If we don't grow, we die. And so we need to continue to find ways to grow in a constructive manner. All those things entwine, whether it's rural or whether it's urban, whether it's Fargo, whether it's Castleton, whether it's Kindred. They're all looking for, as communities, to grow. And how do we support that? Again, we look at infrastructure areas. We look at ways to bolster their abilities to grow as communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
I think the answer to this question revolves around planning and zoning. I reflect back on when I served on the Mapleton City Planning and Zoning because they needed an extraterritorial person on their board. And that was 20 years ago plus. And now I currently serve on the County Planning and Zoning. And this is absolutely necessary. I can see the changes in 20 years over the need to effectively plan and then set up zoning restrictions. This isn't back in the 70s. I can remember Durbin Township, the first zoning ordinances such were, written. But now there's so many more complicated needs of where roads and accesses are going to have to be. And that has to be heavily scrutinized in the next years now as the growth continues. So importance of planning and zoning.
Thank you. Joel? I think that goes to you next.
Oh, can you repeat the question,
Yes.
please?
How do you plan to support law enforcement, fire departments, and emergency medical services in the county to ensure public safety remains a priority?
Again, my experience with law enforcement over 20 years has uniquely provided me the opportunity to really look at those issues and find common ground. We need to have a cooperative effort amongst not just individual departments, but really across the board. And some prime examples of things we've done in the past with law enforcement and fire is our regional dispatch center, a combined resource that allows us to serve the entire county. Our Red River Valley SWAT team, which has been a tremendous service not only to Cass County, but across the Red River. And also just look at ways that we can be more efficient with those services. And we work hand in hand with each other each and every day when it comes to law enforcement. I think that expansion we see specifically in the jail is a vital need that we need to address, but it's not just a Cass County need. Thank you.
And this question goes to you first, Joel. How can Cass County best partner with the cities and townships to better serve residents?
Say, ma'am, I
Yes.
think, the law enforcement question went to him, but I haven't
Yeah,
had a chance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I mix that up?
I think you had it mixed up. I
had a
had,
chance to reiterate his strong stand on planning, and I
Yes.
had to follow that.
I'm sorry, Keith. Go right ahead.
And so now
Would you like me to repeat the question for you?
I would please.
Sure, and I apologize. How do you plan to support law enforcement, fire departments, and emergency medical services in the county to ensure public safety remains a priority?
So reflecting back, first school board experience back in the 2000s, early 2010s, when Sheriff Laney came and talked about the school resource officer and sold the idea. That was very important to, I think, the school system there at Central Cass, and it went to other schools in the county. That was very important. And I can say, too, that the law enforcement, so Durbin Township, we can see those patrol cars out there every once in a while away. And I think that's Sheriff Johnner in trying to draw the county together. His law enforcement, they do pay attention out in the rural area. So that uniform idea of the city and the rural area working together with law enforcement, pretty important.
Great, thank you. And this next question will go to you first then. How can Cass County best partner with the cities and townships to better serve residents?
Say that again.
How can Cass County best partner with the cities and townships to better serve residents?
I think that's one thing that I can notice that they are doing. Because I've been a township officer out there in Durbin for 20 plus years. And twice a year we have township meetings that involve the officers of the county and township officers. And the law enforcement, the other services that are, their commissioners are out there, the health and human services people, the weed control, and there's a strong, and I like that idea of the coordination between what's going on in the county commission meetings, and it brings it out by at least twice a year they're out there. So that kind of coordination, I think, is very, very important.
Thank you. Joel?
I think there's many examples of where there's been cooperation and collaboration between the counties, townships, and cities in our communities, and I think that's wonderful. I can also show some examples of where it wasn't so great, and I think we need to continue to get egos out of the way and really find ways to communicate between those entities to ensure that we're doing the best we can for the communities that we serve. We all have the same goal. That goal is to serve the community, make this a better place, and certainly make it a better place for our children. And so I think communication, more and increased collaboration, but also taking the moment when you're in one position on one board to look across the aisle and see what the issues they're dealing with. And again, we all have a common goal. We need to understand those issues. We need to communicate and really work together to solve them.
Thank you. And Joel, this question goes to you first. What role do you believe the county should play in ensuring access to health care, including mental health services, particularly in rural areas? How would you improve or expand health and mental health services for residents?
Really healthcare in general is something that's obviously top of my mind, being in healthcare for the last 5 years. But I think more importantly, the issue of mental health. It's at critical mass right now. We are in a time where we're dealing with more issues of mental health across the board. Again, as a father of 2 daughters, I want them to understand that their emotional, mental health are extremely important, and I want every child to feel that way. I think there's some programs out there that right now that are working. One of the programs that are institutioning right now in our rural areas is giving officers technology to really bring somebody with that mental health background right to the field, utilizing technology right at the scene at a critical incident. And it's examples like that that give me hope, that there's ideas out there that can really make a difference.
Thank you. Keith?
When Joel said right at the end there about bringing the mental health, very, very important. Another aspect of this, what my wife is involved in, is a community of care out there in around the county, where they care for the older people's mental health and physical health, and trying to care with rides to important visits to the doctor and such, to make it possible for those people to stay close where they're familiar in their homes and such. And I think the county can, I think they already play a part in that, but they can probably play a more important part in the needs of rural, older people, elderly people out there, along with the mental health of the young people through schools and that it's already been the county involved in, I know, the school system.
Thank you. And Keith, this question is to you. Many rural areas still lack access to high-speed internet. What steps would you take to expand broadband access in District 5 to ensure that all residents and businesses can stay connected?
Well, I think you do what they're doing out there, is that there is at least 2 or 3 different entities that are adding, high-speed internet. I know in the area of Durban Township, we've got at least 2 entities that are putting fiber optic cable in, coming in from the south and one from the east. So you, as a township officer, we make it possible for them to do that, without gaining right away in easements. You make it entirely possible for them to provide that kind of help. And then working closely with, the federal government, I know, and the state is both promoting that. So the county's job is to continue that working relationship, trying to add that factor, because it really does help to have that communication.
Thank you. Joel?
I think we all recognize technology has changed over the last 30 years, and certainly the want of internet has really turned into a need, and everyone's entitled to have that in a way that they can, even though they need to pay for it, they certainly have the right to have that and have accessibility to it, because it's vital. And so I think as we continue to look forward, again, there's a number of federal programs we can point to, statewide initiatives. County's role really is to make sure that those companies that are coming in have access, easy access to those properties, so that they can gain entrance and do the work that they need to do to make sure that we can run those lines. But also, again, with technology, we have to continue to do this in a smart way to ensure that we're doing it fairly, and that people have that accessibility to it.
Thank you. Joel, this next question goes to you. Could you speak a little bit more about your experiences you have that best align with the duties of a county commissioner?
I think, I've been involved in a number of committees and boards throughout my career, whether it's the executive director of the Fargo Park District, my role in 20 years of law enforcement. I've served on numerous state committees involving law enforcement and other areas of expertise. I've had the ability to serve our community for over 30 years in a variety of positions with nonprofits. I think all of those combine together to form a pretty good resume for serving on the county commission. But more importantly, I think it's my connections to the people. I've been in this community for 30 years. I've raised a family here. I was educated here. And I feel very much a love and passion for continuing the work and the great work that people prior to me have done, and making sure that we always look forward to the future and we continue to find quality of life as the most important issue in our communities.
Thank you. Keith?
I kind of spent time here tonight talking about some of my experiences. It's like my life has led to this point, going back to serving on the elder on the church board, that church I belong to. I served on the Central Cass School Board for 3 terms, 6 of them as president. I've been involved in township government as a supervisor for 20 years plus. I've served on a couple of different planning and zoning, Mapleton City, and presently with the county. It's like involvement in the fair executive board that I've taken on is kind of all planned together, working to this point of running for the county commission. It's been almost a lifelong preparation of experiences in boards, and I think I'm well prepared.
Okay, thank you. Keith, this question goes to you. How will you ensure that county decisions are made transparently, and how will you engage with the public to ensure their voices are heard?
I think there's probably a couple, 3 things that are very important. One is the transparency that we sorely need in all levels of government, and it's quite evident. You're going to have to make sure that you're supposedly not hiding anything and try to get light to the subject. The second thing I would kind of refer to would be active listening. You've got to listen to what people are saying and then bringing it back to that decision-making process. Being informed on the issues is very important. Keep working, trying to know what the pulse of the county is in making the right decisions. And kind of those 3 things put together will probably lead to, better county government.
Okay, thank you. Joel?
Yeah, I believe that transparency in government is extremely important in every level. And I think oftentimes right now we don't have that. And I think part of it is that we're so blinded by our own opinions that we fail to recognize there's a number of other opinions out there. As the public information officer for the City of Fargo Police Department for 8 years, one of my primary duties was to communicate to the public what we were doing and how we were doing it and why we were doing it. And I took that responsibility to heart, because I think that a well-informed public is one of the best assets that we can have in any government level. And part of that is making sure that not only you're transparent, but they trust you. And trust is an extremely important part of interacting with the citizens of our communities. And if they don't have your trust, they don't have anything.
Thank you. This is our last question. And Joel, it goes to you first. What are the greatest opportunities Cass County has in the next 4 to 8 years?
I think our greatest opportunity is our youth. We have continued to find ways to educate incredible people, educate incredible citizens, and we've done it in a way that's been, I think, affordable. So I think the youth is one of those great opportunities and one of our greatest assets. What we haven't done a great job is retaining them. We need to continue to find ways to keep our children here. And that comes from expanding our workforce, making sure that our priorities align with offering opportunities of quality of life to them. We look across the state, and one of the things that we have going in Cass County is tremendous growth and commitment to growth. But we also recognize that comes with cost. And we need to continue to invest in our communities. And our best asset is trying to keep people here in our communities with a high quality of life.
Thank you. Keith?
Opportunities, I think, are going to center around NDSU and then our neighboring state institutions in Moorhead State, and Concordia, is they put out so many fine graduates every year. And then, like Joel said, keeping those people in the community is very, very important. So Fargo is ideally positioned in West Fargo of growing. The economic growth then is going to create opportunities. And then how we play those out is very, very important. Is that we're going to put out citizens, young people, like he referred to, and educated workers. And then that to me is the opportunity, is to take those people and then build them into the community. And you're going to see only good things in the future.
Thank you. So that concludes the question and answer portion of the forum, and we will move on to closing statements. And Keith, you are first.
In closing, thank you for the opportunity. When we did this back in May and such, and I reflected that I enjoyed the opportunity of answering questions that reminded me of my teaching career, where you always had those smart kids that would ask you and all of a sudden you had to think on your feet. So I have that opportunity again, but going back a ways, my life has been spent, preparing for a job like this with the county, involvement in those kinds of things, whether it be the school or the township and the city of Mapleton. And I've tried to gain an experience using those experiences that I can carry into a commission seat.
Thank you. Joel?
Yeah, I would take the opportunity to thank, first of all, League of Women for their commitment to hosting these events. Also, members that attended this evening and those that are listening at home. And also want to thank Keith. He's been a great opponent, and I know whoever you vote for, I'm confident that you'll get a quality person in that role. And so my feeling in this race has always been about service, and I want to just serve. And there's no better gift that you can give to yourself than to be in service of others. And I firmly believe that. And I want to continue to work for the citizens of Cass County. And this, I feel, is a role that I'm well suited for. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both Joel Vettel and Keith Godis for participating in the forum this evening. And for anyone here or listening, if you'd like to continue learning more about the candidates, please visit vote411.org to help you learn more about their positions on important issues. That concludes our forum for this evening. Thank you to everyone, and have a great rest of your evening.